Well, good morning to all our viewers, all our listeners. If you've got a granny or an aunt or an uncle that you think might get their spirits and their soul elevated by watching myself and Pat for the next half hour, by all means, our doors are thrown wide open. Isn't that right, Pat? With
Yes.
the great Kate
Wasn't that a
Mila
wasn't that a
Fáilte.
title of a book? Wasn't that a title of a book by Pat O'Donnell? The Gates Flew Open or something? Do you remember him?
No,
Pat
no, but
O'Donnell.
our friend Danny Morrison had a book called "Then the Walls Came Down."
Well,
Is
I think
that
that
what you're
might,
thinking
might have
of?
been might have been a take on Pat O'Donnell.
Oh, maybe,
O'Donnell was a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
You don't think
uh,
all men have usually done everything first.
absolutely.
Okay, so you're concerned about what's going on in Germany and how Irish people are being treated.
It's probably a good topic to start off. I saw one over the weekend, and it's quite serious in a way. It shows how Germany took part in one Holocaust and now is denying another one. You know, the Germans never seem to get on the right side of history. But anyway, there's an Irish girl called Kitty O'Brien. She's 25, and I think she's from, it might be Clontarf. Her mother, I think, is a doctor or something, and her an aunt, I think, is a social democrat councillor.
Hmm.
So she's living in Germany, and apparently she came out to protest. I think Thursday or Friday about the killing of the journalists, and and Gaza. But anyway, I only saw the thing about Thursday or Friday. Anyway, bottom line of it is a German cop punched her full in the face twice. Then they arrested her, and apparently they put her arm so far up her back that they have broken her arm.
Oh God.
No, the ambassador, Irish or the German ambassador to Ireland, David, I think he's called David Gill, so he must have some sort of Irish background or something.
Hmm.
He has actually been contacted, and he says he takes it very serious, and he's asking for an investigation.
Hmm.
But you'd notice, thing, the thuggery of the police, was totally unnecessary, uncalled for, and it seems to be in Germany now. You can't protest. We'll
Well,
probably come to talk about Gaza later on
hmm.
because it's on our Clare. But I thought to myself, the reason I brought it up is the reaction of the police was so unnecessary, so thuggish. Now, the girl was, I think, given a bit of abuse to a policeman, in the sense of verbal abuse.
Aye. But what would you attribute that excessive violence to?
I think that there's a growing authoritarianism, and I think the police in America and so on, and in various other now think they can get away with murder. I really genuinely do.
Well, my immediate thoughts were that Germany is very concerned to be shown in no way opposed to Israel because of their
Yeah,
history in the Second World War. I think that's sort of the foundation of the whole thing. And I also think then when cops come under pressure from the civilian population in any way, the trouble is they've been trained to do things in
uh,
extreme circumstances, and they then apply them where the circumstances aren't extreme at all.
yeah.
But that's pretty damn shocking, all right, that our arm was broken. Um, but as you say, the Germans are determined, you see, not to be in any way anti-Israel, which is a
Yeah,
pity, really, because they're actually in any Germans ever I've met have always been very sensible people. They
yeah.
would surely be able to distinguish between repenting their past and being even-handed in their present, wouldn't you think?
You would think so, but they're almost in total denial of what Israel is doing in Gaza. In fact, they are relentlessly, pro-Israel. And I don't get that, Jude. The evidence of what Israel is doing is not up for
Yeah,
debate anymore. It's as clear as daylight.
yeah, but you see, if you think about it, most other countries, apart from America and well, Germany, I'd say
Yeah,
particularly, are to a greater or lesser degree, the people in them anyway, are to a greater or lesser degree in favor of, concerned about Gaza. Um,
yeah.
I still would come back to that thing that the Germans would be hypersensitive to any suggestion that they were doing anything that in any way would damage Israel. Mind you, Keir Starmer, the Brits didn't have a Holocaust during the Second World War, but he's still funneling all the funds that way, uh,
Yeah. Well,
weapons and
he says he is a Zionist. His wife is Jewish. Apparently,
yeah. Yeah.
celebrate every Friday evening. Is it, what do you call it? I can't remember. Is it not Hanukkah? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But
Mm.
it's they have a Jewish celebration every
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't think he's impartial.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, not at all. Not at all. Happy wife, happy life, maybe he's thinking.
Some of that principle, but happy, total moral. But anyway,
Oh,
Jude, let
yeah.
whenever you mention that, I read, and I don't know if you got much time to look at it, but I sent it on to you. The Americans, according to the Washington Post, Jude, I wrote it down because I usually get these things wrong. That's called the Gaza Reconstruction
Oh,
Economic Acceleration and Transformation Trust, otherwise known as the Great Trust. Here, Jude, here's what I'm getting to. Proposes that 2 million people currently living in Gaza could be paid to be relocated to other countries or secure zones as a part of a deal that would see them also receive subsidies to cover 4 years of rent and a years worth of food. Apparently, the Americans are going to pay the people in Gaza 5,000 each to move out of Gaza, and they will build this sort of a Mediterranean style resort, and with electric carports and all that sort of the most
mm,
modern resort in the world. Did you
mm.
know someone? I think it's beyond disgusting. I think it's beyond despicable. I think if they do this, I'll have lost all faith in human nature. Because I'll tell you as much. Would you have a theme park and a concentration camp?
Oh,
Well,
well,
why
you
have
see,
you?
but they would see that as flowering the flowers in the desert. They would say, "Look, this was ruin, and look what we've made of it. Beautiful place."
Well, Jude, what's the greatest respect? I would be going fuck off, and and I'm deadly serious about that. I would think if they go ahead with this sort of theme park, modern city in Gaza, after it could be 200,000 people dead. More children apparently have been had amputations. That's the pain, the sorrow, the barbarism, the starvation, the
Mm.
genocide, ethnic cleansing, and they're going to turn it into some sort of theme park for rich Americans. I think it's beyond anything that I have ever come
Well,
across.
no, obvious question is, I mean, how do the Palestinians feel about that idea? I'd say most Palestinians would quite like to get $5,000. Most Palestinians would like to have a nice home, but they want it in
Yeah,
Palestine. They don't want it somewhere else,
exactly.
and they don't want it
The
to be.
writer that you put on that last sentence,
Hmm.
it's going to cost something like they say a minimum of 80 billion,
Hmm.
80 billion minimum
Peanuts,
to,
peanuts. Your man could take that out of his
to
back pocket.
reconstruct it. Aye, and that's only the minimum. Should I presume it costs trillions to, because like even the Israelis. Somebody had up yesterday on social media. Netanyahu, I think it might have been Owen Jones.
Hmm.
Netanyahu is getting in his retaliation first. You will see when the war's over, and they'll see how much uh, damage has been done. But what we have done is we have put old. He said, "This is Netanyahu. We have put old armored vehicles at the end of every street, and we have filled them up with our ammunition. So because Hamas have put booby traps at every street corner." And he says, and Hubbard was put it up. I can't remember who it was actually. He says they're saying because the Israelis use these old tanks to blow up the whole area. They set off all these booby traps, and that's why
Yeah.
there's so much damage. That's absolute bullshit. They've dropped more bombs in Gaza than were dropped in most cities during the Second World War. They have dropped more bombs in Gaza than were dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So on the damage, 80% of apparently Gaza is flattened
Oh, yeah.
or
Well,
leveled,
of
whatever
course
word
it
you want to
is. Of
use.
course it is. And that's what they wanted to do. And they wanted to kill as many of them as possible. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it this way. Before the October the 7th,
Mm.
2023, was it? Um, every year, the Israelis would say it's time to mow the lawn.
Yeah.
And what they meant by that was to go out and kill a few dozen Palestinians so that they would know who was
Or a
boss.
few thousand, Jude.
Honest to God. Honest to God. Uh, I can't see what the answer is to this. Certainly, Gaza will have to be reconstructed. But the question
Yeah.
is, who's going to do it? What way is it going to be reconstructed? And who's going to live there? If,
Uh,
I'd
well,
worry. I'd
let
worry
me
that
read
they
this.
might. I'd worry that it might actually work out the horrible way that you've just described. You know.
That's it. This is according to the Washington Post this morning. With the current population gone, the US administration trusts that then proposes to clear away the rubble and erect 6 to 8 dynamic, modern, and AI powered smart planned cities, boasting multi story glass apartment complexes, public parks, golf courses, world class resorts along as Mediterranean beachfront, plus electric vehicle plants and data centers. Isn't that so lovely?
Well, just here's a suppose.
Mm.
Supposing they'd built all that, and
Yeah.
supposing they invited the Gaza, the people who were living in Gaza or West Bank for that matter, to come and live there, what would you say to that?
No, but hold on to it. That's not the plan.
I
They
know it's
get.
not,
They
but I'm
want to
just
get.
saying, supposing it was.
That's it. If they rebuild it and give it to the Gazans and allow the Gazans to live as free citizens there, I am all in favour of that
Mm-hmm.
reconstruction. But
Aye.
what I am not in favour is 2.2 million
Yeah.
people being
Well,
forcibly ejected to make way for
where would
these
they
clowns.
go? Who would take them? Who would take
Well, they're,
them?
they're obviously going to say Jordan and Syria
Egypt?
and all the rest. Egypt,
No way. Egypt won't have them.
Egypt doesn't have the money that like Qatar and Saudi Arabia has.
No, look, whenever you talk about the money, like we give out about immigrants, or some people give out about immigrants coming into Ireland. The Brits give out about immigrants coming into Britain. Americans give out about immigrants coming into America. You may be sure that those smaller countries on the borders of Palestine, they're going to definitely be opposed to more immigrants
Yeah,
coming in, like 2 million, not a
2 million.
chance.
Yeah.
I
No.
think I think these guys are. You never know. I was going to say these guys are just simply saying this to get us distracted and think about that rather than something else. On the other hand, some of these people, certainly Americans, they're capable of thinking crazy stuff and actually believing
Uh,
it.
you see, Steve Woodcuff, the American sort of foreign policy guy,
Yeah.
he's a developer. Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, is a developer. Trump
Of
is
course.
a real
Yeah.
estate developer. These people
Yeah.
don't see human beings; they see profit, see
Uh,
big money, see
uh,
big
uh.
bucks.
Sad, sad, sad. Um, did you see where he's opposed to wind energy?
Yeah,
Because he says it's killing the whales. And apparently
aye,
that all goes back to when he established a golf course, I think in Scotland, and they
aye.
put up wind turbines, and that was interfering. They well-heeled people that were playing golf didn't want those nasty old turbines turning around in their line of
Mm.
sight. So ever since then, he's had um, um, a grudge against wind energy.
Yeah,
It's funny, once you mention whales, like he said, I was
yeah,
killing the whales. If he says whales, I immediately think Donald Trump, and I don't think of the two of them
yeah.
side by side. Because
That's
when
right.
they used to have these sort of balloons. Remember, they used to have big
Aye,
blow up balloons of him as a baby. You could very
aye,
easily see that as a whale as well. He's that
aye,
big, portly sort of. Well, no,
aye.
I
Now,
take that
not
back.
so injured.
It's
Apparently,
unfair to whales that.
hey, let's digress. I was watching a couple of things the weekend. Apparently, he has serious problems, health problems. Apparently his hand, he's had a sort of what do you call it, makeup over it and so on. And they also
I say
reckon
he's
that
makeup
he's
on his face, Pat. His makeup on his
aye,
face,
but
and there's
he has a
nothing wrong
medical
with
problem,
that.
and apparently, but anyway, here's the thing. They said during, if you watch closely during the remember the time the European leaders met
Yeah, yeah.
Trump along with Zelensky. Apparently, your woman Maloney, the Italian Prime Minister, she was known a couple of times to to hold her mouth, and she moved her chair away from. Apparently, Trump has some medical condition. Apparently, it's possible that he wears the incontinence nappy,
Oh,
and
sorry.
apparently they're
Too
saying
loud.
that the smell can be quite his BO can be quite overpowering. And they said your man, what do you call him, Macron a couple of times, held a glass to his nose a couple of times. I don't know how true all this is, but they're saying if you watch the video, that there must be some truth in it because it's starting to. I was going to say it's starting to leak out, but it's starting to come out. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And apparently he has some sort of internal plumbing system down the back of his leg.
The
So
poor
I don't
man.
know.
He shouldn't be laughing at a man
No,
with
no, but he's
infirmity.
such a he doesn't give a shit about anybody else. In normal circumstances would be saying, "Isn't it horrible?" and all the
Uh,
rest. but Trump is
So
such a
you
nasty bastard.
you would take the Gavin Newsom line as if they go low, it's time we go a bit lower.
By the way, just you mentioned that Gavin Newsom, I saw the other day. He says the days of, and I agree with you totally. This, he says the days of when they go higher, they go lower, we go higher. He says the days arrive, we fight fire with fire, and I think it's long overdue, Jude.
Mm. But I mean, I think people are applauding him, and apparently those memes or whatever he sent on X, they are very successful in sort of sending him up. But it doesn't. I think what's more interesting is the fact that Texas are really zoning the electoral areas. And
Redrawing
we
it for
know all about
gerrymandering,
that
of
sort of
course.
stuff,
Mhm.
gerrymander.
Uh,
So he said that he's going to do exactly the same thing in California, dependent on if they go through with it. I think that's clever. That's bloody
Aye,
clever.
Obama. They said Obama at the weekend or last Thursday or Friday issued a statement, one of the first ones he's issued, saying what Trump said in regard to boundaries and gerrymandering should alarm every American. And he said, somebody said, well, sure, they're trying to say the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. Obama said, a temporary rebound to match what Texas is doing is not the same. He says, one is a deliberate attempt, the other is a sort of
I
an
suppose.
aborted attempt to sort of match up, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because that could, well, actually, they say that Texas isn't the only place, or California isn't the only place. Apparently, gerrymander is rife throughout the states generally,
Yeah,
and that the
and
Democrats
it's
do
by
it.
the way, and it's more and more been done by Republicans.
Ah,
Hey Jude, and some places like Florida, they make black people, and Alabama, and where else that I was reading, wait sometimes 12, 14 hours to vote. They
oh,
put polling booths and places, and Trump is trying to get rid of mail-in votes, and he claims nowhere else does it.
hmm,
22, I think, of the major economies in the world have mail-in votes. So what a
yeah,
load of bollocks
yeah,
that is.
yeah.
And
Oh,
apparently, according to some of the American electoral officials, it's almost impossible to fake your vote. You have to provide identity, you have to provide everything under the sun. And they're saying the system is absolutely nearly less than 1% of any election and anywhere in America can be doctored. So that this thing that millions, Trump's trying to claim that he was conned in the last election is absolute bollocks.
Well, of course, you always have that dispute. Do you remember the time they said there was personation, which I've never heard the word used any other way before? Personation at
Uh,
electoral centers here.
yeah,
Do you remember that?
yeah.
And
Oh, absolutely.
they used to say it was the Shinners, but actually, I could be wrong now, but I do have a memory where they said that when they investigated eventually, when it was safe distance away and back to peace and all that, that in fact it was STLP people
I,
were up to it at least as much as the Shinners.
Absolutely. Hey, there was a famous case, and the woman's long dead now, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, apparently, the old joke in Derry was vote early and vote often.
Yeah, yeah.
So apparently, she had voted at least three times when she came in. And the returning officer says, wait a minute, arrest that woman to the cop or whatever. And he says, she's voted 4 or 5 times. Anyway, the story was that time it was her own vote. So, uh,
Bernadette Devlin told me one time that they were taught how to do personation by no less a
yeah,
figure than Jerry Fitt, and they used
uh,
to do it I think I've told you this before, in a counterintuitive way. That what would happen? They'd know an old couple who would be coming out later in the day, and they'd be sure to vote
uh,
nationalist or even Sinn Féin.
uh,
And the trick was to go to impersonate them, put in their votes for nationalist or Republicans, and then when the old couple came down in the afternoon and found their vote was taken, say, "Oh, this is outrageous! They were bloody unionists." So
uh,
they had it every way. They were able to
uh,
get the votes, make sure the votes were the way they should be, and at the same time blacken the names of unionists. Now, how true or
uh,
not that is, I have no idea. Let's go
I'm
on
sure,
to
but
something that's more elevating, Pat. When
uh,
Queen Camilla was a slip of a girl, 16 or 17, do
16
you
years ago.
realize this? I thought you'd be wearing black today when you heard this. She was on a train, and on that train there was a man, and he started putting his hand places that he shouldn't have been putting his hand. And Camilla, this is up. I guess this is just broken. Oh no, it isn't. She was talking to. It was when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, and he got on like a house on fire with her. And he asked her, "What did you do then?" And she said she did what her mother had taught her. That she took off her shoe, her high heeled shoe, and struck him in the nuts. Does that seem a likely tale to you or unlikely?
Jude, someone, any man would sit and watch a woman taking off her shoe and just sit there waiting for her to hit him on the nuts doesn't strike me as particularly true.
I thought you were.
Or else that, well, put it, I guess, I think it's highly unlikely. Now, I'm not disputing the fact that there's always some lecturers bollocks on a train who might well a young girl. I'm not disputing that. But I think her version of taking off her shoe and hitting him in the nuts, like,
Well, it's a
does
novel
somebody do that
idea.
in slow motion?
But Pat,
Huh?
if you think about it, it depends on the heel. Now, if you had a real high heel, that could do
Yeah,
serious damage. But and as a
absolutely.
weapon, it's one that all women wear. Well, if they're
Yeah,
wearing high heels. Um,
yeah.
but I think the fatal flaw with the whole story is it comes to us via Boris Johnson. He
Exactly.
can't help lying. Him and Trump like are on the liar
Oh, God,
stakes
Jesus,
right at
yeah,
the top.
yeah.
So maybe it's a load of rubbish. Okay, that more serious matter, Pat. The presidential election south of the border is heating up some. I have a few views on this, but do you want to say something about Jim Gavin or
No, Jim Gavin was the former Dublin manager, GA manager, and he won what, just six titles in a row or something
six
like
in a
that.
row?
Now,
Fantastic.
Jim, there's one sort of obvious flaw I can see in it. Apparently, he's nearly got the Fianna Fáil nomination all but wrapped up.
Mhm.
There's Billy Kelleher from Cork he's an MFP. He was very interested in it.
Yeah.
But anyway, bottom line is Jim Gavin apparently has now got nearly all of the TDs and ministers. I think bar Jim O'Callaghan, the Minister for Justice, and he hasn't declared for anybody yet.
That's
So
right.
it looks like, what?
That's right. I was very struck by that. Well, I wonder why that is. I wonder why he's hanging back.
Well, maybe he was holding off for some reason or other. Maybe he's got somebody else in mind. But anyway, bottom line is, if the Irish Times this morning is correct, Jim Gavin has basically got it all but wrapped up. The
Yeah,
same
home
way
and
as
home.
Heather Humphreys has got it all wrapped up in Fine Gael. But anyway,
Yeah.
here's the point, Jude. Here's the one flaw I can see in that.
Right.
Jim Gavin might be very popular in Dublin, but I wonder how popular he is in whether you get down somewhere like Kerry or
Yeah.
Donegal or somewhere else.
This is it.
He could, he
It's
could
like
be
it's
a
like
quite
it's
a
like the Dublin football team,
uh,
hugely popular in Dublin and outside
uh,
Dublin. Everybody, they always used to say this. If Dublin was playing an All Ireland final, they'd be very rabid the Hill 16, but everybody else in the stadium was
Right.
cheering
I
against them.
used to say, I was like, when Donegal were playing Dublin, I always said it was like Italy playing England at Wembley. Every time the visitors had to go to the home ground, everything was in Dublin's favour. The
Yeah,
massive big area they were getting massive grants from the GEA. Every game they played at Croke Park, which was their home ground, every advantage went to Dublin. Accrued Dublin's way. But anyway, so I can see Jim Gavin might be, absolutely on a pedestal, an iconic figure in Dublin. But I wonder how iconic he is in Mayo or
how
Roscommon
how
or
how
Laois.
how would you rate him, Pat, at the moment? Out of 10, 0 to 10. Let's play this game.
He's a man
Zero.
of considerable ability.
Okay, so as a candidate, though, now, as a
no, as a
candidate,
candidate, no, I would say
what would you
about
rate him
six.
as a candidate?
About six.
Good, I think that's generous. I think he's a very
Uh,
nice guy. He's obviously a
Very
really gifted
intelligent.
manager,
Uh, uh,
but
uh,
as far as I didn't even know he's interested in politics. And
Neither did
again,
I.
I tend to see literally the image is important. And the truth is that the image of Jim Gavin is of a quiet, agreeable, almost meek man. That's
Yeah,
that's the sort of presence he projects when I see him, and that was one of the things that commentators used to commentate on was the
uh,
fact that during games Jim Gavin was at the sideline and his face was impassive. He wasn't
uh,
throwing his arms around like Pep Guardiola or anything like
uh,
that.
yeah.
So I maybe 5 or 6. Okay, move to Heather Humphreys. What would you give for Heather Humphreys?
No, she's the other way. I think Jim Gavin could be like Marmite, very popular in one place and not
Okay,
very popular.
What
Heather
about
Humphreys
Heather?
is apparently, I don't know the woman now, so I'm only going on.
No, neither
Apparently,
do
she's a very
I.
warm personality, a very nice woman,
Uh-huh.
and has got the common touch. Have you met her, irrespective of whatever party you're from?
Okay.
Apparently, she's so lovely person.
I have
She's a
covered your
by the
ass
way,
now,
Jude,
Pat. Now tell us what you
I
think.
but let's get to the meat here. She's got one big thing going for her. She's a Protestant, and that's a fact. That's
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
probably her strongest suit as they see it. But
yeah.
why would people vote for someone because they're a Protestant if
We've
they,
still, hey Jude, hold on. We've still got that thing, Irish thing, because of all the troubles. We want, and rightly so. I'm not objecting this because I feel the same. I want to be inclusive, and I think if somebody's got a disadvantage, for want of a better term, namely and being a minority community in Ireland, I want them to feel totally part of it. And I would nearly vote for Heather Humphreys on that basis alone.
yeah, I know what you're saying, Pat. I agree with you, and it's
Yeah.
good to show that Protestants are an integral part of the state, or the North for that matter. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's a good idea.
No, I'm not
Choosing
sure it is either, but I
it
know
looks a wee bit
because Jude,
calculated, Pat.
but hold on, Jude, we have had a history of people, the unionists, excluding people. I
Hmm.
want to be part of a community that
Uh,
includes people.
Fair enough. On the other hand, you've got to keep this in mind. The public won't forget that she's the substitute coming off the bench after
Aye.
Mairead McGuinness dropped out, and there's such a contrast between the two. You would have said you could
Uh,
see why Mairead McGuinness was way ahead. Now, there was nobody else in. But
Hang on,
she,
Jude. A wee 16-year-old come off the bench for Liverpool the other day and scored the winning goal against Newcastle. So,
could happen. Could happen, Pat. Now, tell me what you think of Catherine Connolly. Did you catch that? I was coming back from Dublin and I listened to it, that interview on RTE with Catherine Connolly.
no,
You
sorry,
didn't hear
I
it?
missed that. No,
It was quite
no.
long, quite a long interview. I'd say it lasted about half an hour. And the guy was getting at her about her close relationship with Mick, what's his name? You know,
Mick Wallace,
Mike
and Claire
Wallace
Daly.
and Claire Daly. And what the guy was hinting at was that she was overly sympathetic to the guy who ran at the time Syria, Bashar al whatever.
Bashar Assad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that she was, he didn't say this, but it was just a hint at the idea of being closer to Russia and more
uh,
understanding of Russia, because that was the line that they were taking. Now, she handled herself quite well, but that lodges in the public mind. Is she such
uh,
a bloody lefty? Is she really? They like Mick, whatever his name is, and Claire Daly, and I'd like the two of them as well, but they are radical, and
uh,
I think the electorate in general in the South, that'd be just too much for them. So I think that
uh,
interview didn't do her any good. It wasn't a car crash, but it was maybe a bicycle crash interview. I think it has
uh,
damaged her a bit. The other thing is this: the choice of Labour plucking her out and saying this is our candidate, in my opinion, destroyed the chance of having an agreed candidate on the left. I mean,
yeah.
that is daft. I was listening to that guy, what is he, the People Before Profit guy, Murphy,
Uh,
is it? Paul Murphy?
Paul
He was
Murphy.
saying, oh, we'll wait and see what Sinn Féin have every right to choose whoever they want to, but it'll be interesting to see if we can get an agreed candidate. I think that's awfully,
Mm,
awfully, awfully stupid. I'm totally in favour of there being an agreed candidate among parties of the left, and including Sinn Féin, would be left of centre, I suppose now. Uh,
mm,
but look what happened. Labour just went out there. Ivana Bacik went out there and says, "Right, Catherine Connolly, that's our, we're backing
yeah,
her." And
yeah,
there's not a chance that that's the way they act. If Sinn Féin now say, "Oh, right, we'll back Catherine Connolly as well," they look as if Labour's calling the shots, or the
yeah.
other people before profit and the Social Democrats. If they choose their own candidate, they're now going to be
Split the vote.
splitting the vote on the
Mm.
left. I just thought that was a very sneaky kind of a thing to do. In fact, it was anti-democratic to talk on the one hand that you're going to have a united left front on all things in the government or as a presidential candidate, and then to turn around and do something that just makes that almost impossible.
Yeah, I agree with you. The thing about hey, Jude, the left couldn't agree that tomorrow is Tuesday. That's always been the way in Ireland. So by the way, Batchick's decision hasn't gone down all that well, even in Labour. I see Alan Kelly, a former Labour leader. He says he's not backing or supporting Connolly. There's a councillor in Donegal, Martin Fearn. I heard him on the local radio the other day saying, "I am not backing her either." He said, "I think it was." He says was sort of premature. It wasn't agreed. There was no consultation. He says this woman was sort of put up as our candidate. So like it hasn't gone down all that
So
well.
she's
And he
she's
said the
get
chairman of the local party in Donegal, I think he's called Seamus Bovaird, I think I remember the name. He said he doesn't back it either. So, Jude, your point is well made.
yeah. So she's getting, she's having trouble internally and externally
Yeah,
with the interviews relating
yeah.
to uh, Claire Daly and company. Um,
But Jude,
I think it's
that's
a
the
pity
point.
because she's a
It's
smart
very hard
woman.
to, aye, but it's very hard if you're seen to be close to Russia. Jude, I don't know what happened in America, but we were brought up as Russia as the enemy, the stark Satan. And if you're seen to be close to Putin, now I don't know how Trump gets away with it in America. When you consider that the baby boomer generation were told that, hey, get your head under the desk in case there be a
Hmm.
nuclear attack, and the Russians,
Yeah, yeah,
the what Cuban crisis of 1961.
yeah.
How people who are brought up with all that can now switch allegiance to Trump as the good guy and Zelensky is the bad guy. Getting back to Ireland, it'll do damage to Catherine Connolly, to be seen to be supportive of Russia, even though maybe Russia's got some points in its favour in regard to what happened in Ukraine. But
Well, I must say, if I had a vote, which I don't have, I'd probably put it for Catherine Connolly because I think she's right.
mm,
Essentially, Russia's complaint, I gather, at this big meeting they had in China was
uh,
that Ukraine joining NATO would be a threat. And it would
their
be.
security,
It would be.
yeah,
You've got
absolutely.
NATO sitting on your doorstep. I can understand.
Mm.
Now, it doesn't justify going in and killing every Ukrainian you can see, but I think it does add that degree of nuance that we don't tend to allow for. You have to hear Russia's case. People won't hear that. It's a disservice to the truth.
Yeah, Jude, you see, the point is, what the Americans certainly didn't want Russia having influence in Cuba. They were willing nearly to
No,
go to war with it.
exactly.
But
Exactly.
they're sort of saying it's all right for America's sphere of interest to be right on the border with Russia. And we have made the point several times. Putin has made the point that if they get surrounded, Russia is basically hemmed in. Then their navy fleet won't be able to
Mm,
move,
mm.
etc., etc., etc. So they want Ukraine as a buffer, not
Aye.
as a member of NATO.
Aye. Okay, well, we're just about out of time, Pat, but I just want to toss this in that Camilla, I think, ever since has been a proponent of women who are being abused or attacked by predatory males. And there's something called a wash bag for victims. Some sort of cane. You ever hear that?
Not
I,
a notion. Don't
I,
even know what
I
that
I
means.
just feel myself bewildered. Maybe it's a woman thing and we shouldn't be talking about
I
it
haven't
at
a
all.
clue what that is. I really
A
haven't.
wash bag
A
for victims.
wash bag.
Pardon me. I would have thought a pepper spray or a gun might be more effective.
That's what I'm pepper. I've never heard of a wash bag, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
Okay,
So on
bye.
that note,
Thanks
all the
very
best, Jude.
much. Thank you.
Jude.
We'll
See you
talk
later. Good
again.
luck.
Oh, listen.
Talk to you
Yeah,
again.
okay.